There is one defect attitude that I've noticed amongst many people, both believers and unbelievers. And this defect attitude will draw a lot of harm onto you. This defect attitude will enable a lot of harm around you. And what is that defect attitude I'm talking about? It's holding onto pictures you've painted in your mind. Okay, I may need to rephrase this because this may be a bit complicated for you. What I'm saying here is that you need to be aware with painting pictures. And painting pictures, I'm not talking about the literal painting of pictures. That painters do, or that drawers do. I'm not talking about that. I figuratively am referring onto expectations people develop based upon their own understanding, and consequently they hold onto the image that is formed on this process. So it works like this. You have data that you received in the past. You relate to this data, where in a positive manner, in a negative manner, you relate to this data. Based on this data, you filter what comes in your mind. And you develop expectations based on this filtering process. And consequently, you form an image in your mind of a situation, or of an individual, or of something. And what most people do is the image that's built in their mind, they hold on to it. And now they want to act out to paint the picture. So the picture is in their mind. They develop certain expectations, certain perspective on something, and now they want to validate that image. So they're painting pictures. That's what I mean. And look, painting pictures can be useful if you're an architect and you design buildings. It can be useful when you're an artist and you are painting a beautiful painting. It can be useful when you're writing a script for a movie. So there is a place for painting pictures. But what a lot of people do is that they, even though it happens unconsciously, they're still doing it. They paint pictures of life itself and of other people. And the worst part is, not that they're not aware they're doing it, but they don't check it. They don't evaluate the pictures they're painting. Or as I mentioned before, they don't examine their expectations. Look, painting pictures mentally, we all do it. Okay, so it's not an unnatural thing, but it has its proper place. Outside of its proper place, it can be dangerous. Let me ask you something. Why do you think companies, governments, and all kinds of institutions invest so much money in advertisement? Why? Because advertisements, they project an image onto your mind. That's what advertisement does. And when you are confronted with this image over and over again, you become attached to it. And you develop an image in your mind based on what you've been exposed to. Why do you think that they put certain songs on the radio so often? Because you hear a song, often you build a pattern towards that song. It can be an aversive pattern that you can't stand the song, but it's still a pattern, still attached to the song, or it can be an attractive attachment. That means you like the song. In any case, an image has been formed in relation to that song. And it depends on the data you have in your mind, whether it's an attractive attachment or an aversive attachment. But nevertheless, painting pictures, we do it. But I'm telling you, beware of painting pictures. Because what if the picture you're painting is based on wrong data, on wrong expectations? Or what if your perspective is plainly wrong, completely wrong? What then? I mention this is because people tend to hold on to the pictures they're painting. And when they're painting those pictures, when they're acting out, enforcing boundaries, cutting people off, or approaching certain people, when they are painting the picture in enforcing this image into the external world, they seldom stop and evaluate what they're doing. Now look, I'm going to give a parable now, and maybe it will become clear unto you why I'm warning you to beware of painting pictures. Let's say you have a female, she's 25, she's dating, and this guy she's dating, or she's totally in love, they plan to marry, to buy a house together, and people want her to be happy, her relatives want her to be happy, her friends also. She doesn't have many friends, she's only a select group of people she hangs out with. So it all appears good. She works at a consultant office, he works in logistics, doing office work. So they both earn good money, they both have similar perspectives on politics. So the image seems like a match. So she's painting the picture by investing in the relationship, investing in her relatives, in her friends, and in keeping it together. And there's nothing wrong with investing in relationships. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's one big error here. She doesn't even know why she was attracted to the guy to begin with. She felt this pull towards him, she gave herself over to it, and it was a pleasant ride, and she began to shift things around in her relationships to match this guy. And some of the people she was hanging around with left her because they noticed that she changed. I mean, some people saw that her attachment to this guy went way too far. Some of the relatives even saw it, but they thought, you know what, she's happy, leave her alone. Now, what was really going on? She had expectations of men that were developed during her upbringing. Her household was not a perfect one. Her father was not really that present. And her mother was kind of, well, quite of too dominant, aggressive, violently aggressive sometimes. So without her being aware of it, she picked up some of her mother's behaviors. Even though she couldn't stand what her mother was doing, she picked them up. And based on the ways of her mother that she picked up, she began to screen all her relationships, both with the opposite sex as with other women. And eventually, the unconscious ways, the ways of her mother she unconsciously adopted began to ruin her life. She wasn't even aware. What happened was that during her early 20s, when she went through this depression, she began to cling onto the few people that, according to her, were supportive of her. And she thought she was doing the right thing. But she was not aware that she was becoming just like her mother, whom she loathed. She consequently became bitter against certain people because they didn't meet her expectations. She developed a short fuse, and she would lose it with people. She was operating in pain, in frustration. And she became more and more like a hermit. She had those few friends she interacted with, but even those interactions were like monologues, which it wasn't a real interaction at all. So, when she was at work once, this guy walked in, had a lot of charisma, and his charisma felt like a strong compensation on her behalf. And this what drew her onto him. And she is quite beautiful, she's good looking, so she thought, you know what, let me try to talk to the guy. And you know what, it worked. So it felt like a big accomplishment on her part. And this blinded her even more. So over time, when she was with the guy, she painted pictures. But as you can see now, the relationship is based on her denial of her own pain. That pain is still there. It's just compensated for by the perceived charisma and perceived strength of that guy she's with. I say perceived. Now what will happen? Soon after their wedding and they move into their house, well, the honeymoon phase won't last for long. That hidden pain, those hidden frustrations will come to the surface. And she will likely not be aware why she's so upset with her husband. But because she is in denial, she has been in denial since her youth. Because she's used to be in denial, she will project it all onto her husband. So she will end up either cheating or making his life miserable in some kind of way. Now what happened to this chick? She painted pictures in her mind. Okay, she did it. Both male and females do it. Males tend to do it in an analytic manner. Females tend to do it based on females tend to do it in an emotional manner. Okay, human beings do it painting pictures. However, it's also your responsibility to evaluate the pictures you've painted, to examine them. And she never examined her own expectations. She never did. And here's the thing, she had no intention to do it either, because it would be too shocking and too overwhelming for her. So, 6 years later, man, the marriage was about to collapse, and the husband now wanted to seek help. He wanted to save the marriage because he was very fond of her. He plans to spend his whole life with her. And here's another thing. This guy also painted pictures that he didn't want to examine, because the behavior of this chick when he met her was disturbing. When he told his buddies at the pub about their first dates, some of his buddies were shocked based on the information he shared with them. Some of those buddies, in a polite and friendly manner, even suggested onto him that this chick may not be good for him. But this guy, he also had his package that he didn't want to examine. So now he ended up with a borderline narcissistic woman that wanted to destroy him. And the guy, I don't want to call him dumb, but he still just couldn't realize what was going on. The only safe option for him was to leave. But hold on a minute. How did he end up there? He ended up there because he held on to the pictures he painted in his mind. Not only when he met her, all those pictures he painted before. Look, I can understand when you have an artist. I'm not going to compare them to Leonardo da Vinci and all of those people, but I understand if you have an artist that spends hours on a painting with a lot of details, that the artist is very proud of it, and the artist wants it to be treated with care. That's why when artists sell their art to musea, the musea tends to treat it with the best care, because the artist that made the painting spent a lot of hours in it and a lot of effort, and the musea appreciates this. That's why the painting is so expensive. I can understand that. But when it comes to mental images that you paint, I don't care how long you painted those pictures. If those pictures are self-destructive, and if those pictures will enable harm onto you, you need to let them go. I don't care how disillusioned you will feel. Feel disillusioned. Your life is far more important. Your safety is far more important. Look, I'm not going to tell you don't paint pictures. That's impossible. As a human being, you have your imagination. Your imagination is part of your soul. Just like your emotions and your intellect, your imagination has its practical purpose. There's nothing wrong with your imagination. There's nothing wrong with using your imagination in daily life. When you're driving on the road, you use your imagination to calculate the potential moves of the other cars. When you notice that a car is driving too fast, you realize you need to slow down, because or else an accident may happen. That's you using your imagination. You're painting a picture of what might happen. And 9 out of 10 times it works and you're safe on the road. So your imagination is important, okay? However, The data you have in your mind, you need to examine it. If the data is not in line with Christ, it needs to go. And a lot of people, they're painting pictures based on data that goes against Christ. So the pictures they paint, the images that are formed, are abominable, are abominations. And here's the thing, because they don't see that those images are abominations, they don't consider that those abominations may be what is enabling unclean spirits to attach themselves to them. Now don't get me wrong here, unclean spirits will haunt you anyway, especially when you are a believer. They're coming after you. That's why you ought to walk by faith to overcome them. However, it's something different when you have abominable images in your soul that enables them to be there. Because those abominable images are like altars onto those unclean spirits. Don't focus on those Buddha temples or those temples to, I don't know, to those Greek gods. Don't focus on those physical constructs out there, those monuments. The real monuments that enable unclean spirits more effectively are the idolatrous images people have in their minds. Look, let me give an example. If you have a guy that's this white knight attitude that he needs to change and rescue a woman, if he has that abominable thinking, I'd say it's abominable because, first of all, he can't even save himself because of that Christ is a savior. So if he can't save himself, how can he save others? He can't. So it's an error that will endanger him if he believes in it. So that's why it's abominable. I'm not saying he is abominable, but that thinking of his is abominable. And the thinking will endanger him. If he has this white knight thinking, when demons notice it, because that white knight thinking will reflect in his behavior, often without him being aware of it, when demons pick this up, they rejoice. Because now they're enabled, they have an open door to him. So what will happen? The demons now are going to attract a lot of borderline, narcissistic, closet B type females onto him. And because he has this white knight thinking, he thinks he's responsible to help those people and rescue them. It is true, he has natural responsibilities towards other people, to his fellow human beings, that's true. But that thinking of his goes too far, and he doesn't see that. So, as a magnet, this abominable image is attracting unclean spirits, and with those unclean spirits, it attracts dangerous people and dangerous, fatal circumstances. You see now how important it is to be renewed in your mind? Or maybe you have a female that thinks that she, as an adult now, has to fix everything in her life. She needs to manage her life. Of course, she has natural responsibilities towards herself and others, that's true. But she's taking this adulthood way too far. She relies on the world's definition of adulthood, which is Antichrist. So now, she is burdening herself with the care of her whole existence. And that is impossible for any human being to do. Nobody can do that, but she thinks it's her obligation. And because of that, she ends up stressed out, having burnouts, which will have other health side effects on her. And here's the thing, that thinking enables demons of sickness to hang around her. You see now how important it is to be renewed in your mind, because the mental images you have in your mind are as magnets. And as magnets, they either are in line with Christ and the supernatural works through them and will be at your benefit and the power flows through you, or those images in your mind are abominations that pull negativity onto you, because those abominable mental images they have a heavy effect on you as a spirit being, and you begin to generate heavy energy, which is negative energy. And once you emit negative energy, unclean spirits come to feed off of it. So those abominable mental images are magnets to the paranormal. And there are people with many magnets to the paranormal in their mind. That's why wherever they go, similar circumstances keep haunting them. Now, as I mentioned before, there are times you're just persecuted and things tend to haunt you. That's different. However, being persecuted is different than you unconsciously enabling your own demise. I'm telling you, beware with painting pictures, because those pictures are magnets, and magnets attract stuff. Well, it depends what type of magnet it is. What type of magnets do you have? Just ask yourself that. That's why evaluate the data that you've received. Is it in line with Christ? Okay. If it's not in line with Christ, let me say, reframe it, and if that's not possible, throw it away. Because I'm telling you, when you have abominable mental images, you have altars to unclean spirits. And why would you want that? That being said, agree with Christ and be at peace.